ESPN has picked Molly Qerim's replacement on First Take. Plus, we preview the NBA's Eastern Conference ahead of next week's tip-off. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios here in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington, and thanks so much for joining us as each and every weekday we chat the biggest stories happening in the business and culture of sports. We also have ESPN's Laura Rutledge on to preview Week 7 of the NFL later. But first, let's dive into the headlines in the shoot-around.
Yeah, and an update from yesterday, Renee. In an about change, FIFA now says the U.S. government has the final say on determining the safety of World Cup host cities. This after previously saying that they were the only ones who could move matches to another location. Now, this news comes after President Trump said he could move matches away from host cities like Boston, Seattle, and San Francisco if he felt those cities were not safe. The president also said he could move the Olympics out of Los Angeles for the same reason. Now, we should note all those cities have Democratic mayors, and ESPN says FIFA is under the impression right now that there are no current issues with any of the 16 host cities across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Yeah, FIFA's also come out with various statements saying how safety and security are their top priorities, and obviously so. But what's interesting to me is this is not the first time we've heard for a FIFA event in terms of the World Cup or any international tournament with safety concerns. Yet this is the first time we're actively hearing about it potentially moving cities. And so you have to also keep in mind, though, FIFA does have close ties to Trump in terms of a relationship. We've seen Trump involved with the Club World Cup this past summer that he was presenting Chelsea the trophy on the stage. We also have seen him having the FIFA World Cup and the original trophy in his office in the Oval Office. We've even seen FIFA now have an office in the Trump Tower. Yep. So we've seen some relations. We've seen them even this past week in terms of conversations and things. This might be an opportunity for them to kind of preserve that relationship, but also make sure to remind people they are prioritizing safety and security.
Yeah, the president saying his relationship with the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, he would call him to tell him to move a city from a host city if he needed to. Well, the most valuable soccer club in the world, Real Madrid, are reportedly planning to change their ownership structure. This would now allow outside investors to purchase stakes in the legendary club for the first time. According to The Athletic, one idea would see the club split into two entities, one for soccer operations, and the other would see external investment in the club's business side. Now, since its founding in 1902, Madrid have been owned by club members, and they would have to vote on any ownership changes. Madrid's president, Florentino Perez, reportedly would present these details of ownership changes during a general assembly before the end of the year.
And that's the key. When you look back to the history for Real Madrid, going back to 1902, one of the oldest and most successful clubs, not only in Spain, but in the world, and they have been led by club members. So to have this be brought up as the only club in world football to have recorded revenues over $1.2 billion, which is about 1 billion euros, this is a very expensive club, but they feel like because of their ownership model, it's outdated and doesn't allow them to compete with other clubs around the world, which is wild to think about.
Right, because Real Madrid signs everyone.
Correct, but in terms of the transfer market, they feel like they aren't able to truly compete on the financial scale with this model. So it's not only about, looking to evolve with the times in terms of on the pitch, but also ensuring that financially they can keep up as well. So it does feel like this is the start of many discussions. I know there's been rumors of will they be sold? What does this mean? What does this mean moving forward? But the key is there's going to be a lot of discussion in the upcoming weeks that we might get a closer verdict or understanding if they plan to split into a business and soccer entity.
Well, construction on the main hockey arena for the upcoming Milan Olympics might not be ready until one day before the opening ceremony in February. That has led NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman to now voice concern if there would even be enough time to test the facility for player safety. The Associated Press reported the construction delay forced testing for the event to a nearby smaller arena. That is, new Olympic venues typically are tested at least a year before hosting any medal events.
Safety and security, again, at the forefront of a massive international tournament, just like we talked about around FIFA. And with us just months away from looking at the Olympics, to not have any further progress and expectations on a final timeline, and to hear that the first games that could potentially be played on the Olympic ice hockey arena could be the Olympic Games is very concerning. So for Bettman, they're saying ultimately it is for the Olympic Committee to be able to have the full responsibility and accountability for how this is rolled out. But for the NHL, they have to make sure their players, as the best in the world, are being set up to be successful and safe, and they don't want any sort of risks or safety concerns around not having time to test it, because they've actually moved the initial testing to a local, smaller rink with no plans of when they plan to test out the actual game of
and
arena.
Even just beyond player safety, you would have to test the facilities, the concessions,
locker
rooms, electricity, all these things. So to be able to basically say, oh, one day before the Olympics happen, we can now test all of that stuff. That is a big rush. But we should note the Olympic Committee is saying they think they will be okay, and they have basically given the blessing to Gary Bettman in the NHL, saying that they will be okay as well.
This has been an issue for years, they're saying, though, that Bettman's reported. So this is not the first, just the first we've really heard of it.
Yeah. Well, ESPN's First Take has found their replacement for Molly Qerim. So who's going to moderate the panel for Stephen A. Smith & Co. on the network's most popular show? Plus, Bruce Pearl has now joined the TV ranks as a college basketball analyst. So let's take a look at that and some of the other media headlines in today's big main event. All right, let's bring in Mike McCarthy, author of the Tuned In newsletter, also a media reporter here at Front Office Sports. So, Mike, let's start with First Take. They have now officially found Molly Qerim's replacement. Who is it?
It is Shae Cornette. She has been on the short list of candidates who've been basically auditioning for the job. I've watched her on First Take. She's great. She has excellent chemistry with Stephen A. Smith, and she's a great traffic cop, which is what that job entails. So yes, Ryan Glassbeagle and I broke the news this morning. ESPN confirmed it. Shae Cornette officially succeeding Molly Qerim on November 3rd.
Mike, with Shae stepping into the role that Molly Qerim held, do you think this is the long-term solution for First Take?
I do. They're very, very high on Shae. They think she's going to be terrific. And, Renee, you're a professional, and so are you, Bacon. This is not an easy job to do, right? It looks easy, but you have to kind of keep your ego in check and almost be a point guard, right? Setting up all the talent around you and making them look good. And the truth is, the people who've done this job on First Take, they don't last forever. Jay Crawford, Carrie Champion. After a while, you got to move on and do something else. The star of the show is and will always be Stephen A. Smith. But I think Shae has a great chemistry with him, and I think she's going to do fantastic.
Yeah, some other media news we heard as the former Auburn coach, Bruce Pearl, is going to be one of the new CBS Sports college analysts. He's going to be involved in the regular season games. He's going to also be part of their studio coverage for CBS Sports. What do you know about this move for Bruce Pearl, and do we think he's going to be a great broadcaster, more importantly?
Well, I'll tell you, when I look at the coaches out there in terms of enthusiasm and ability to talk, Bruce Pearl would be at the top of my list for somebody who'd be great on TV, right? He's just got that bubbly personality. He's loud. He's incisive. He's talkative. I talked to Bruce, as a matter of fact, this morning. Coach said he was trying to make a decision between that and a run for politics. I mean, every time you turn around, there's some ex-coach down south who's running for Senate, Tommy Tuberville, etc. But he wants to go into TV because, like a lot of coaches, he's basically a teacher, right? They want to teach the game. And he thinks, now that he's 65 years old, he can spend a little bit more time with his family and teach the game.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. He's also going to be doing TNT stuff as well, which will be Big 12 coverage and a bunch of other things as well. And
TNT Sports, exactly.
Yeah, and so I think you're spot on, Mike. I think he's going to be a really interesting addition to the college basketball television landscape. Let's talk about Clay Travis over at OutKick. Obviously, we had spoken to Clay during our Tuned In event just back in September, but now there's some news that maybe Clay might be leaving OutKick. What have you been hearing about this?
We did a really interesting story this week that said Clay's contracts with OutKick, Fox News, and Premier Networks with his Clay and Buck radio show all expire at the end of this year. So right now he's talking to everybody. He's talking to media companies. He's talking to possible financial backers. He could start his own thing, which, as we all know, we've talked about on the show all the time. People like Pat McAfee, they want to own their own company. They want to control their IP. So I think Clay is going to have a lot of opportunities. But, boy, it would be hard to imagine OutKick without Travis.
Well, it's weird, though, because he did own his own company with OutKick. And then with this partnership now might be stepping away. Is that surprising to you? It seems a little bit odd to me that he'd actually step away from something he built.
No, because he's really returning to his entrepreneurial roots, right? He founded Output, built it up, then sold it for $100 million to Fox. But guys like that, they don't like being beholden to somebody or taking orders from anybody. They want to be their own bosses. So I see it as a return to his roots, right? He wants to start another media outfit, possibly the way he started OutKick, back in 2011.
Really interesting. Mike, with just about the 90 seconds or so we have left with you, I'm just curious your takes on this Troy Aikman situation with Caleb Williams, obviously the Bears quarterback, sort of giving some shade to the former quarterback on his social media. But what do you just think of this?
I think Ben Johnson should shut his big yapper until he wins something. I mean, I'm totally with Stephen A. Smith. If Troy Aikman wants to give you some advice after winning 3 Super Bowls and going to the Hall of Fame, maybe you and Caleb should listen to it instead of getting salty, you know?
Yeah,
I think there's worse people to give advice. So I think if Troy Aikman's giving advice, I agree with you. Why not take it? What's the worst that could happen?
I think Aikman is a really good color commentator. I think he gives good advice.
You're the Bears. What's the worst that could happen?
He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and he's a winner. You know, if he's going to give you honest advice, hell, if he told me advice about how to be a journalist, I'd listen to it. Never mind being a quarterback.
Same. Good stuff as always, Mike. And of course, you can sign up for Mike's Tuned In newsletter by going to frontofficesports.com. All right, coming up next, everyone, ESPN's Laura Rutledge is going to preview the Week 7 of the NFL for us. That's coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington. I'm Baker Machado, and let's talk a little NFL, shall we? As Week 7 begins tonight with a Thursday night matchup between the Bengals and the Steelers. Plus, we have a delicious Monday night football game between the Lions and the Bucs. So to break all this down, let's bring in Laura Rutledge, host of ESPN's NFL Live, as well as part of ESPN's Monday night broadcast team as well. Laura, great to have you here. Let's talk first about tonight's game between the Bengals and the Steelers. A lot of people are calling this Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers matchup the Icy Hot Bowl. What do you think of this?
Oh my goodness. It's great to be with you guys. And yesterday, I think you guys would love to know that on NFL Live, I resisted the urge to call it the old fart quarterback game because it feels that way. But no, I mean, look, the reality is, and you may have seen what Mike Tomlin said earlier this week about the fact that he thought it was a little bizarre that the Bengals got a quarterback within the division from the Browns. They're having to deal with Joe Flacco again. But here's the thing, Joe Flacco's having to deal with the Steelers defense again, which is not necessarily the way you want to go. I have been impressed by the way these Steelers have operated, though. And this Aaron Rodgers-led offense looks like what they wanted it to be, what Arthur Smith probably envisioned it being. And a lot of it has to do with the time that he's had to throw and the way he's been protected. So credit to them for that. And we'll see if the Bengals can find a way to hold force until Joe Burrow can maybe come back. And hopefully at that point, they'd still be in some sort of contention for something.
And Laura, I want to give credit to you as you continue to get involved in so many different broadcasts and shows, and we see your role evolving. And as of this season, we get a chance to see you on the sidelines with the Monday Night Football crew. And as a sideline reporter working alongside guys like Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, I'm curious, with every crew having its own identity or special secret things they do to prepare, what's something different about this crew that you get to work with compared to some of your others?
Yeah, I'm always so thankful to just learn from other people in this business. And Joe and Troy have been doing this at such a high level for so long. They are the longest tenured broadcast booth in all of NFL broadcasting. And I think what's amazing about them is that they put in so much preparation, but they also find a way to still be themselves and to still let the broadcast breathe in a way that's really a nice watch for fans at home. You know, they get great feedback off of that. So I've learned from them in that way. And really the vibe is fun. And they set that tone. You know, we have a lot of fun together. We all have a lot of laughs and jokes and all of those things. But also really prepare and work at a high level and respect and value the property that is Monday Night Football and how much it matters. So I'm impressed by the tone that they've set that trickles down throughout the entire crew. And I've certainly been a beneficiary of that.
Yeah, and of course, the game you're doing on ABC, obviously the big one between the Lions and the Bucs, but we have another Monday night doubleheader. I mean, we've had quite a few of them this season. We've had them over the course of the last couple of years as well. I mean, what do you think just from a viewer's perspective, getting 2 Monday night games pretty much every week for the first couple of weeks here in the season?
Yeah, I mean, more football is never a bad thing, right? And it's been pretty cool. We've had, you know, true double headers a few times. We've had some staggered start times just to, give people an opportunity to start watching the one game and then tune into the other game. And it's been really neat. I mean, the games have been incredible, that's helped a lot with the way that people view these. And I expect this Monday to be no different. You know, these matchups are exceptional. So I'm really excited for it. And I think in our Bucks and Lions game, there's so many storylines. As much as the Bucks have dealt with injuries throughout this year and Baker Mayfield has somehow overcome all of that, I think we'll see that once again against a Lions team that has their own injuries to deal with and people out. Brian Branch won't be playing in this game, of course, after what happened last week. And then Jared Goff has been able to figure out all of this. So it's been really fun to watch these teams, and we're excited to have them on Monday Night Football.
And as you touch on both the Lions and the Buccaneers, with what we've seen getting up to this point, it takes me to a bigger picture look at the NFL, as we've seen so many surprises, whether it's the first coach fired, or surprise upsets, or maybe some teams that are not off to the best start when you look at what their expectations are. I'm curious, Laura, looking across the NFL, which teams are the most surprising, whether in a good way or potentially a bad way?
Yeah, I'll start with the positive. I mean, the Indianapolis Colts have been such a pleasant surprise. Like, as much as people had Daniel Jones left for dead and said, all right, even if the Colts get him to help back up Anthony Richardson or create a quarterback competition, he's not going to be very good. And look how great they've been. I mean, he did have a couple of mistakes this past week, but yet they were still able to win because they're so well set up around him. So credit to the Colts. I think they are 100% for real at this point. There's really no other way to look at it. I would also throw the Patriots in there as a pleasant surprise. We kind of expected that. They made some really good moves in free agency. Mike Vrabel coming in has been really good. A negative one for me that I'm disappointed about, I picked the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. And just the injuries has been a nightmare for them. So that's one thing. But you don't want to use that as a complete excuse. That they haven't played up to their standard that we've come to expect out of them. I realize they're without some of their stars, and Lamar Jackson certainly not being out there is an issue. But I'm still cautiously optimistic that when Lamar Jackson comes back, when they get a little bit healthier, they'll be in a much better position to hopefully make a run. And they can still always be dangerous with a guy like Lamar as their quarterback.
Let's talk about your one of your NFL live partners, Dan Orlovsky, who we see on ESPN all the time. He has some very weird food takes in terms of things that he eats. I'm curious, out of all the years you've worked with him, maybe what's the strangest Dan Orlovsky food take you've ever heard?
It's hard to choose because there are so many weird ones, and they literally happen every day, you guys. Like, this is not an exaggeration. But I think the weirdest thing he's done is he likes Mentos, like the strawberry Mentos, but he'll eat them and like fully chew them and then spit them out on the desk. He does this on our NFL Live desk. So we'll be like getting ready for the show, sometimes in the show, and I'm looking down and like on a piece of paper, there's just a bunch of spit out, chewed up Mentos. And I'm like, Dan, this is where I draw the line, okay? You cannot do this. This is disgusting. He doesn't care what I think. He just keeps doing it. But yeah, that one's really odd. And he said it's because he doesn't want to ingest the calories.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
like, what is that? 80 calories? Like,
Oh my goodness.
I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's
also, that would be so
wild.
gross to do a show and have a
Ew.
pile of like gently used Mentos right next to you.
Listen,
You know?
Laura, you have kids of your own. You don't have to clean up after Dan
Yes,
as well on the
true.
show. That's disgusting.
Yes.
All right, but I am curious. Let's put you in the hot seat. It's not really as much of a hot seat as Dan's Mentos, but when you think about football, you think about tailgating and the
Yes,
excitement
true.
around it. Do you have anything in particular that you love most about tailgating? Maybe it's a snack. Maybe it's something that you enjoy eating yourself, Laura?
Yeah, I love tailgating, right? It's the best part of the year. I mean, you look forward to it. It's nostalgic for everyone. And for me, it's a lot about the food, which is the best possible opportunity for people as they get ready for the game, right? How are you going to sustain yourself, enjoy with your favorite people? And what I found is honey baked ham comes in as the best possible option for this. Everything is right there for you. The take and serve sliders that they've come out with this year, you guys, they're absolutely delicious. Piled high is the Hawaiian buns. You've got the signature honey baked ham. You've got turkey. You've got cheddar. You've got bacon on those. All the condiments that you would ever need, including honey mustard. And you just show up to the tailgate, or whether you're hosting the tailgate, and you start passing these things out. Doesn't matter the age of somebody. Kids love these. Everyone can carry them around, enjoy them. Honey Baked has so many different options. The take and bake sliders are so good. I cannot talk enough about these. You just pop them in the oven for a little bit. They get nice and bubbly and delicious. Ham and Swiss, turkey and cheddar. You top them with some garlic butter. That all comes in the package, so it's all right there for you. And people are like, "Wow, you went all out for this tailgate. You really must like me." It impresses your visitors, and just makes everyone feel special. So I think it's all about the memories that you make at these tailgates, and a lot of that revolves around the food.
You had me at honey baked ham.
Yeah, by the way, we know Dan Orlovsky's not eating any of that, by the way. So,
he loves them, actually.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Yes, of course he would. Of course he would.
He's a fan.
Yes. All right, Laura Rutledge, thank
this.
you so much for joining us. Of course, you can watch Laura on ESPN's NFL Live and, of course, on Monday Night Football and the SEC Network as well. Laura, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, and don't go anywhere, guys. We have more Front Office Sports today headed your way right after this break. Well, a new NBA season tips off on Tuesday with a big doubleheader on NBC. So let's preview the Eastern Conference. A lot of big storylines there with what's going to happen with Giannis and so many other things. So let's bring in FOS reporter Colin Salao. So Colin, before we get to Giannis, let's start with the top teams. Interestingly, the Cavs have the highest payroll in the East and the NBA right now. Is it really the Knicks, Cavs, and maybe even the Magic's to lose here?
Yeah, I think it's easy to say that, and right now that's probably the logical answer, but I think Renee will agree with me here. It's anything can happen in a season. Someone can randomly get injured, and also we all thought the Pistons were going to be bad again last year, and the Pistons were a really good team.
True.
That could easily happen in an Eastern Conference that's still wide open. I think the Hawks could somehow jump up. Again, you mentioned the Magic. Why not a team like the Pistons again, like I said? Why can't Cade Cunningham take that next step that he already took last year and maybe take another one? You'll never know. And my favorite you'll never know team, and I think everyone's you'll never know team, is the Philadelphia 76ers.
Always.
We'll sit here forever and talk about whether Embiid will play, but maybe he does. And maybe they're the number one seed and still get knocked out in the first round. But he still could play a lot of games, and the Sixers are built well. So I think the East is wide open, and it is logical to say Cavs, Knicks. But there could be teams that jump up, especially when they play other weak Eastern Conference teams.
Yeah, anything could happen. Injuries, trades could even happen. Let's look over at the Milwaukee Bucks, because obviously we saw the exciting historic news as for the first time an NBA team has three brothers on the same team, as they signed the youngest of the Antetokounmpos and Alex joining his older brothers. So that makes us wonder, for the Bucks, maybe adding a little family ties in addition to some other roster moves. Have the Milwaukee Bucks done enough to keep Giannis this season, or is this going to be the year that we see Giannis get traded?
Well, the one thing is that they're all, 1-year contracts essentially, right? And I think that's what this is. This is a one extra year experiment. Giannis still has, time on his contract, but I think that it's going to be we're gonna look at what this team really is right now. They don't really have much depth. They don't really have a lot of guard power in terms of scoring, in terms of handling the ball, in terms of proven talent. But who knows? When you have a guy like Giannis and you have a rim protector like Miles Turner, perhaps they could make noise in a weak Eastern Conference. But to your point, Renee, I think it's going to be an evaluation. What does Giannis want? Is he okay with a middle tier Eastern Conference team, or does he really want to be near the top? Because we've already heard murmurs about the Knicks. I don't know how that trade is going to happen, but whether I think it's going to happen this year, I doubt. But I think this year is, with the Antetokounmpos there, probably a 1-year experiment before what happens next.
Colin, two teams dealt with significant injuries, Boston and Indiana. Also had a lot of roster changes as well. What are sort of the expectations for those two teams? And do those teams maybe shed off larger assets, maybe in Boston's case, like Jaylen Brown or Derek White, in order to get a good lottery pick for when Jason Tatum comes back?
Yeah, it's interesting. I compare it to past seasons with Golden State, when they took kind of this gap year because of injury as well. In my case, and in this case, I really think they're going to look at how the year starts, right, and see what happens. Are they good to start the season in a weak Eastern Conference? Is it good for them to just keep the ball rolling and just see what happens and maybe make some noise in the playoffs? There's so much random noise about whether Tatum will come back in the playoffs, and whether that's the right decision is going to depend, I think, on how the team performs. In terms of Indiana, I think it's a little bit of a different situation there, right? They already let go of Miles Turner, but now they're below the tax. Again, they avoided that tax. But Halliburton is not going to come back this year. They already know he won't, but they made the finals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think being patient, I think the vibes are good in Indy. I think they're going to be a little bit more patient with what's going on, and Rick Carlisle will not leave. So they'll always have him.
Rick Carlisle, I think the longest tenured coach right now in the NBA, which is crazy. Colin, by the way, is going to join us tomorrow to preview the Western Conference. Colin Salao, thank you so very much. And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Renee, Texas Tech and Kansas were each fined $25,000. That after their coaches got into a heated exchange last week. That's when Tech fans threw tortillas on the field, which led to multiple 15-yard penalties. And the Big 12's new rules state that teams receive warnings for the first 2 violations of things thrown on the field, and then a 15-yard personal foul penalty after. Now, Tech's athletic director says fans would still be able to throw tortillas during opening kickoffs only. That's, of course, a tradition they've done since the 90s, but not anytime afterwards.
I am laughing at the fact this is like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs coming to life. This is the type of fight I'd want to get involved in. But as you mentioned, it is a long-standing tradition dating back to 1990s. And so they're sticking to this. The Red Raiders want this tradition to continue. But I will also say there's more beyond the tortillas in terms of also there was alleged a pocket knife that was thrown as well that Kansas had that mentioned, but police have confirmed they did find a pocket knife. They just are trying to figure out where it comes from. So between the argument, the tortillas, the pocket knife, a lot happened in that game and ultimately led to fines being handed out.
Yes, exactly. And Lance Leopold, the Kansas coach, apologizing for that altercation as well. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of Front Office Sports Today. Renee and I are back on Friday for way more. We'll see you later.
Let's go get some tortillas.
Yes.